This is one of these videos that I sometimes do where there's no sort of start, middle and end. It's just me talking at the camera. It's just me putting down a few thoughts rather than any particular point of doing it, if you like. But I wanted to share with you a story that occurred in the last week. Been a long day at work. I have been fairly stressful day, and I was meeting one of my mates after work for a few beers. I live not far from sort of Surrey area. There's a lot of nice pubs around, a lot of open space, etc. So to set the scene, and in my extremely humble mind, it's a very, very nice scene. I get to the pub a bit early, basically got out of work, wanted to get straight there, some beer down my neck. So I'm sitting up at the bar. You've got a lovely pub in Surrey, empty bar, massive garden outside, beautiful weather, pretty perfect. You've got a barman, you've got one other chap in the pub, you've got my mate who's rocking up in 15 minutes time. So I've got a pint of Tanglefoot in front of me. Now Tanglefoot, if you don't know, is the main beer from a brewery called Badger Beer, who are one of my favourites. It's a fairly strong pint, like a real ale, nice sort of fruity overtones, really, really good pint. I've also got, and I'm getting into some detail here, but I really want to set the scene. You know, in my spare time, I'm a bit of a runner. I can run a sort of semi-competitive 5k, 10k. I just run 10k in a fairly decent time, so I thought, you know what, I'll push the boat out. So I got myself a portion of pork scratchings. So I'm sitting there, and I must admit, in my mind, life doesn't really get much better than this. Nice pub, good mate arriving, nice ice cold pint of real ale in front of me, big serving of pork scratchings with about 50 grams of fat. You know, right now I am a happy man, and to be honest with you, I'm kind of content with my own company at this point. You know, I'm happy just to sit there 15 minutes with nothing entering my mind other than the fact that I'm not at work, if that makes sense. So I'm just sitting there in silence, very, very pleased with the world, thinking this is what makes me happy in life, sad as that sounds. And across the bar, I start to listen into a conversation that's going on between the other guy in the pub and the barman. Now the other guy in the pub is clearly a sports fan. He's wearing a football shirt. He's watching some sport on the TV. He's been playing darts a few minutes ago, by himself, I might add. Yeah, he's clearly a sports fan. And for some reason, almost fate would have it, the conversation turns to boxing. Now, I'm not involved in this conversation at this stage. Unfortunately, I had to spoil my 15 minutes of silence and interject into this conversation due to the levels of idiocy that I witnessed. However, at this point, I'm sitting there listening to it, and the conversation came to the Eddie Hearn card headlined by Kell Brook and Frankie Gavin. And as is always the way, you know, and you can tell instantly that the guy's a casual fan, you know. He obviously had no interest in Lee Selby. He obviously had no interest in Kevin Mitchell. For the purposes of this conversation, it was actually questionable whether he had any interest in Kell Brook. But this guy who, as I say, it didn't look like boxing was his first sport of choice. He had watched the Anthony Joshua Kevin Johnson fight, and he had decided off the back of it that Anthony Joshua was the mustard. You know, that he would walk through Klitschko. He was describing Anthony Joshua, I think he described him as the new Mike Tyson, which I found quite an interesting, you know, comparison. I mean, there are people out there who know more about boxing than I do, but in all honesty, like, I know a little bit about boxing. I spend enough time in front of this camera talking about it each week. I spend enough time watching on it. And if I'm completely honest with you, I have something of an obsession about boxing. You know, I need to know everything that's going on. I'm fairly obsessed with the sport. That's not to say I'm the most knowledgeable, but I know more than the average person you'll meet in the street. And for me, the comparisons between Mike Tyson, a short heavyweight with no amateur background who turned pro young and sort of adopted the peekaboo style, very, very difficult to see Mike Tyson, Anthony Joshua from my eyes. But anyway, this guy was going on and he was saying, oh, Anthony Joshua, you know, he's going to walk through Klitschko. He's got to be, you know, the best heavyweight since Mike Tyson. Have you seen the power on him? So, at this point, and the barman, you know, I like a pint. Barman knows that I have a passing interest in boxing, so we say. He says, oh, your man over there, what do you think of Anthony Joshua? So at this point, I got involved in a conversation. But rather than, you know, I didn't want to be, like, aggressive about it. So I just thought, I'll ask a few questions here. So I said, oh yeah, Anthony Joshua, who did he fight again? I was just testing the waters. Neither of them knew the name of Anthony Joshua's opponent, Kevin Johnson. And when it became clear that neither of them knew, I said, oh yeah, that's it, it was Kevin Johnson, wasn't it? Yeah. And I was playing really dumb. I was like, oh, okay. So I said to this guy who obviously rated Anthony Joshua as the new Mike Tyson, I said, oh, well, you know, is Kevin Johnson like a really good fighter in your eyes? You know, obviously you rate AJ very, very highly. So, you know, what have you seen in Johnson's form that makes you think that Anthony Joshua is really good? And this guy says, no, it wasn't that. It's just the way he walked through him, you know. Like, there's no one alive who's going to be able to deal with Anthony Joshua. Like, he's like a force of nature. The way he just sort of, how big he was and the way he just walked through that opponent, you know, and that opponent just couldn't defend against his punches. And I said, you know, okay, so is it like a power thing? And at that point, to be honest, like, my mood has gone from 0 to 60, and you know, I've gone, at this point I'm spluttering my pork scratchings into my pint of Tanglefoot, you know, like the steam is starting to come out of my ears. And I said, Tyson Fury, you seen him fight? Yeah, I've seen him fight. I don't rate him, to be honest. Don't rate him. Like, I saw him get dropped when he was fighting on Channel 5, and you never see him knock out opponents like he did Anthony Joshua. And I started subtly planting the seeds in this guy's head. I said, at a certain stage, power isn't enough. You need a bit of technique as well. And in my eyes, the way Tyson Fury outclassed Derek Chisora so badly, Chisora had to quit on his stall, was almost as impressive as knocking someone's spark out. And it came down to, yeah, but Anthony Joshua's just like a force, isn't he? Like, you know, nobody's going to be able to stop him. Like, we've seen Tyson Fury dropped. You've never seen Anthony Joshua drop like that. And I said, yeah, but we've never even seen Anthony Joshua hit. Like, Tyson Fury, we know he gets hit. We know he can get dropped. But we sure as hell know that he gets back up and can win fights. Anthony Joshua, we've, never even seen him been hit. Oh yeah, well maybe there's a reason he hasn't been hit. Maybe it's because he's elite defensively. And I said, can we consider the level of opposition potentially? I said, being a force of nature and running through opponents and destroying them in 30 seconds flat is very impressive, but it gets to a point where you need more than that. Like, I said, look at Deontay Wilder by Main Stavern, which was a reference he didn't get. But Anthony Joshua, I mean, where this conversation left me is, and as I said, I did warn you at the start, if you've stuck with me now, you're up to nearly 10 minutes, so I did warn you at the start that there wasn't like a great conclusion here. But where this story left me is that Eddie Hearn has done a really fantastic job on Anthony Joshua in terms of making him appeal to the average man, in terms of making him appeal to sports fans, in being a crossover fighter. Fair play. Hearn's done an excellent job. But the average man, I think, has real. I think they're in for a surprise, you know. I kept saying to this guy, did you not see what happened to David Price? You know, wasn't he similar? No, he hadn't seen what had happened to David Price. Because Hearn has done a next level job on getting Anthony Joshua in front of the football fans, in front of the Formula One fans. Whereas David Price was, whilst he was starting to bridge the gap, he was still very much a boxing fans boxer. But the questions in my head, which I've raised on this channel numerous times, and raised to this guy, are stamina, are chin, technique, defence, rigidity. And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to brand all Anthony Joshua fans as casual fans, but I do think that it takes a hardcore fan to appreciate someone with the style of Tyson Fury, and to see that that is a style that could take him some way to the top. Casual fans don't have appreciation for elite movement, for switch hitting, for body punching, for combinations. Casual fans have an appreciation for seeing people go to sleep. People going to sleep is all well and good, but as I've said numerous times, Sergey Kovalev, Deontay Wilder, when you hit the elite level of the sport, it's not enough. Opponents can go 12 rounds. It will happen to Golovkin soon enough. It will happen to Joshua soon enough. And when that happens, when you're in against an opponent who can judge the reins, who can jab your head off, then we'll know for sure. Let me know your thoughts, as always, keen to discuss.